As part of our celebration of Black History Month, we wanted to highlight talented students who are using fashion and culture as a way of letting their voices be heard. We'd like to welcome Brandon Alston, Director of Communications for the College of Charleston Black Student Union, and Dennis Wright, member of the Social Outreach Committee for the Student Union and owner of Wright Brothers Vintage and Streetwear. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
So, Brandon, tell me, the Black Student Union, you've been doing these fashion shows. Why is fashion an important way of expressing your voice?
Yeah, so something I've always felt is that fashion is always very stigmatized within cultures, within genders, and everyone always feels that there's a certain way you have to dress to fit into the social norm, the social status quo at the moment. And I feel like for me growing up, fashion was always something that I used to express myself a lot, but it took me a long time to really be comfortable with who I am and really say and do all the things that I want to do with my style. And I know a lot of other people also struggle with that. Well, on the Black Student Union, we're lucky to have members like Dennis and myself and Kyle and Elise who really pride themselves in their clothing and shopping sustainably. So a lot of us thrift shop only, and that's where all of our clothing comes from. And we really like to show who we are in the varieties of clothing you can find at thrift shops. And I think that's a really nice way to kind of bring all these different groups of people and cultures into something where they can all be themselves and be extremely unique.
Absolutely. I like the idea of not being trendy.
Yeah.
And it's not just what's old is new again. It's collecting from years and eras to create something that's fresh today and unique.
Yeah, finding what mixes across, the 90s to the 80s to the early 2000s to, mixing the fabrics that used to be in. So Dennis and I, we both love corduroy. I wear corduroy.
I do too, by the way.
Thank you. Corduroy is a fantastic fabric that is completely overlooked nowadays. So I think it's just nice being able to, there's such an intersectionality in fashion that I feel like needs to be represented in our communities.
Most definitely. And Dennis, this question is for you. So speaking of vintage fashion, you've made a business out of this and successfully so for the last year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Tell us more about the Wright Brothers Vintage and Streetwear.
So Wright Brothers Vintage and Streetwear, it started actually in my dorm room last year, my freshman year of college. I always had a passion for fashion, and like to kind of touch on the last question again. I think the way you dress is the way you'll be addressed. So just always looking good and clean and presenting yourself in a good way, so people will address you in that way. But yeah, I started it last year in my dorm room. Like Brandon said, I'm a huge thrifter, so I've always loved vintage clothes and vintage style, because even fashion today, they reference vintage a lot. So the things you see today will be references of vintage pieces that designers saw. So just being in a thrift store, you don't know what you're gonna find. Sure. You have stuff from all over. You don't know who donated what. You don't know where it's coming from, but it's all right there. And then it's you putting it together. So that's where my love of thrifting comes from, and vintage. So it's grown to where now I can just buy packs of vintage, curated vintage, because I know what I want now, and it's just so much. Every piece has a story as well.
And I'm sure both of you can attest to the fact that a lot of these clothes that were made yesteryear are wonderful quality, better quality than some of the new things that we can buy today. Well, the fashion show sounds fascinating. Brandon, can you tell us how people can tune in, where they can see this fashion show take place?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, because of COVID this year, we've had to kind of switch up our game plan. And our usual, live in-person fashion show is being taken online this year. So we're still doing our best to involve the community as much as possible. So we have models from anyone throughout the college, all different genders, ages, races, everyone's in here, sizes, everybody's here. And they're meeting up individually with our stylist and our camera person to film them. And then we're going to put it all together, and we'll do a live streaming next Saturday the 27th at 6 p.m. You can find that on our YouTube channel, CofC BSU, or on our Instagram. We'll also have a link.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. And talking to somebody who never throws anything away, I'm looking forward to being inspired this weekend. So I want to thank you so much. We're going to put that information out for our viewers. We'll be right back.